You're listening to the Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I'm guessing you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, considering getting on the mats, or maybe you're considering starting to train. I'm so happy you're here listening or watching this episode. Please don't tap out before the end. When you want to learn a new discipline, start training Jiu Jitsu. I'd like to welcome Laura to my podcast. Hi Laura, how are you?
Hi Lou, I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I think we probably need to explain because you haven't yet started training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, have you?
No. So currently I'm training Muay Thai. I've been doing that for over a year now. The closest I got to a Jiu Jitsu mat was standing outside the gym, trying to get into the class, but couldn't make it. Too nervous. So I guess since I started training Muay Thai now, I kind of, that oomph and urge to want to try it out is sort of slowly creeping up on me.
Good. And I'm so pleased we've connected on Instagram and you agreed to come on to the show in one of my call outs for guests. I'm always looking for new guests. So if any of my listeners would love to come and have a chat with me, it's not scary. Laura's here and it's all lovely. I just want to say thank you for reaching out and coming to talk to me about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Now, in the last 24 hours, I have received my blue belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, which I am very proud to have received. And so I've gone through the white belt journey. But when you talk about standing outside Jiu Jitsu venue and feeling too nervous to go in, I think some of the listeners can really empathise with you. Tell us what was going on for you and why you felt those nerves.
Yeah, well, first of all, well done on the blue belt. I love it.
Thank you.
The nerves, I think I'd recently sort of trialed stopping drinking. I've been a really heavy drinker and I've been sober for maybe 15 months now, and it's the longest I've gone. So kind of in that time, I lost all my social skills. I didn't really know how to connect with people or talk to people. I think even doing something like this in the early days of my sobriety wouldn't be possible. And yeah, I just kind of lost myself. I didn't know who I was. I was like at the early stage of learning who I was again. So those nerves just completely took over me. I'm a massive overthinker. I can imagine all the worst case scenarios, even though I know now it's not as bad. Things aren't as bad as they might seem.
Yeah.
I just couldn't make it through the door. My nurse at the time sort of encouraged me to give it a go. And I was all up for it. That door was a physical and mental barrier.
Yeah. I think, some of us can absolutely resonate and feel what that's like, having the physical barriers, whether it's stepping out of the car, whether it's, getting off the bus, whether it's kind of walking up to the door and going, actually, I can't even think or feel to open this door right now, so I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive physical barrier, but there's lots of mental barriers that go on behind that are almost the bottom of the iceberg, and that opening the door is that last kind of section. But when you say about social connections, that's really important for many of us that train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or any martial art or any kind of community space. How important are those social connections now for you?
I mean, now they're the core to my being almost. It's just even training Muay Thai. I've met such amazing people. The resilience I found in some of these people is kind of, I look at people and it's almost like a mirror looking back at me. I can see parts of myself in them, and it's almost like, God, these people have come through so much, and they may have similar experiences to me, and it's kind of like the proof that they can get through it, and kind of it resonates with me and kind of provides me with some hope. And even just by turning up to training a few nights a week kind of has helped me not only in the gym and kind of in the ring, but outside as well. I now know how to sort of relate to others and connect with people, whereas before I was just sort of a shell. It sounds cliche, but yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. You know, I've certainly had experiences where teammates have seen themselves in other teammates, and kind of put themselves out to help others. And I think, you know, part of all of our beings is to some extent to help and support others as much as ourselves, and to really kind of see that empathy and, you know, kind of take us back and humble us a little as to our own journeys and reflect on how far we've come.
Absolutely.
But certainly when we see others that have, you know, are either, you know, coming up through the ranks, or even more progressed through a martial art. And I think, you know, I know you haven't started training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu yet, but all of these things will just, you know, there are so many kind of levels and dimensions to everyone and everything on the mats. I was just going to reference some art thing then.
Okay.
Some of my thoughts. You might not have any connection with art, but I remember doing some GCSE or A-level art, and studying The Three Ages of Man by Titian. And it's kind of, you know, the baby and then the teenager and then the older man. And actually we all embody each one of those levels and kind of combine them together in one view. So for any art lovers, if you want to come and chat art and creative and culture stuff, do. But it's just being able to resonate and relate with different aspects of our lives, that they all just merge into one, and we are just one person on the mat, and we're not seen as one thing or another thing. But anyway, there's me going off on one now. I'm not going to apologise, actually, by saying that. I have just apologised. Anyway, Laura, so I do know that you know Katie Jebsen, who was on one of the last episodes.
Yeah.
And you're coming along to her Fight Network Interclub on Saturday, the 3rd of August, which will be amazing because I'm going to be there. I've had a match-up, which is rare, being a Masters 4 and super heavy. So for me to actually get any match, either within my weight category or in my age category, is an absolute challenge. But when you were talking about Muay Thai, you said about being in the ring. Have you competed at any of the other martial arts or things that you've done?
I used to compete in karate when I was younger. So I was looking through my box a while back, got some like little medals and all this, and kind of, so I did that, and it's such a difference from me then to me now. I think back then competing, I was almost fearless, and I had none of these worries that I do now, sort of like, oh, what if people think this of me? I can't stand these people watching me, things like that. With the Muay Thai, I've done 2 interclubs, so both of them have been at KO Academy. I did one last Sunday, actually. So part of my journey, I feel it's probably, I don't know, going to take a bit longer than most to feel comfortable competing. But the most important thing for me right now is to kind of just enjoy the journey. I use it as such a sort of healing thing.
Yeah.
It provides so much more to me than just like physical activity. It's done like my mental health wonders. It's, you know, everything like that. So hopefully I'll keep, you know, trying out these interclubs and building confidence and kind of, just see where I go. I'm enjoying it so far. It's been really difficult at times.
Yeah.
But I've no regrets in starting at all.
Good. I'm pleased to hear it, and I'm going to be really pleased to meet you in person.
Yeah,
one of my missions is always to meet my podcast guests in person, whatever it takes. have gi, we'll travel anywhere in the world. If I have an invite, then we're coming to see you. So you haven't even got your white belt yet, but it sounds like maybe you might. So I will offer some advice. When I started, literally just thrown into it and got on with it, not knowing anything about it. But I think you've already gained some of the qualities and, some of the mindset around training a martial art. So I feel like the transition might be quite easy for you. But I was thinking earlier, actually, choosing somewhere to train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is like choosing a therapist. Now, I will explain. Okay, this is quite a tricky one, but it's finding something that will fit with you and meet your needs rather than just maybe going with the flow. And I know some of us kind of change clubs and choose different kind of strands of jiu-jitsu. And at one point in our lives, we will find the place we're supposed to be. But it just crossed my mind that it, feels the same as choosing a therapist. Anyway, if anyone resonates with that, do drop me a DM so that, I can be reassured that it's not just me that feels like using Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like choosing a therapist. I can't wait until you do start. Do you have lots of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu clubs near you that you're able to access?
Yeah, so I think there are quite a few. And I think what you just said there kind of even resonated with me in Muay Thai. Like, where I train at the moment, it is like a therapy setting. And it's kind of, I feel at home there. So I that's what's all as well like stumbled me in starting jiu-jitsu, because I know there's so many gyms around and, you're almost spoilt for choice. But it's kind of, I'm very wary as to where I go and kind of the ethos behind the club and kind of how I would feel there. So I think I've gotten very overwhelmed in whittling down a few places to go and try because there's so many.
Yes. I think, do feel free just to try different clubs. And I think, we feel an obligation to stick with the one that we go to first. And that may very well be the right one, but there's no reason why you wouldn't go and try all of the others. If you went to the shop, here's another analogy, and you tried on a pair of shoes and they weren't quite right, you wouldn't buy them and go out the shop with them, would you?
No, absolutely.
It's like you would try others, and it's the same. Therapist, shoes, I don't know what other analogy I can find. I'm sure there's lots.
No, it definitely makes sense. Kind of, I'm very, now that I'm a bit more open and kind of, I'm a little bit more able to stand my ground, I think I'd be able to say, okay, on we go to the next, I'll try this one and, keep working it around. So, hopefully in the coming weeks, months, I'll get my first taste.
You will, absolutely. This is the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK. Go and check out the latest video clips over on jiu.jitsu.lu on Instagram. And as you're listening or watching on your favourite podcast platform, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Today, I'm talking with Laura, who hasn't yet started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So we're going to meet at Her Fight Network. We're going to meet and you're going to observe other women competing, fighting, open matting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's not next week yet. So for me, I haven't started mentally preparing. And I think I quite like the style of being dropped into these things because then I don't have to think about it. And I can just take the situation for what it is. But I do know that training and preparing for these things, some people invest heavily their time, their kind of emotional well-being to preparing for these events. When you train Muay Thai, what preparation do you do before you start training, or what accompanies your Muay Thai training?
So sort of along with the Muay Thai, I really enjoy running. That is a huge outlet for me. And, you know, it's one of those things as well where I invest a lot of my time into it. And I've run a few half marathons now, and I'm hoping to run the Brighton Marathon next April. And for me, it's one of those things where I can run with friends if I want, but I can also have time to myself and have a clear mind and kind of run out on the streets of like East London at 5 a.m. and just, it's me. And, you know, I'm then sort of like true to myself, and I can think about the upcoming day and prepare myself that way. And with the 2 interclubs I've done, I've known that I was doing them with probably 6 weeks to spare. So it was a lot of thinking time. And for me, that's torture. So what you were saying about being dropped into it, I completely get. If someone came to me, if my coach came to me today and said, oh, in 4 days, you're going to fight, I'd be like, okay, fine. That I might be able to deal with. But 6 weeks in advance, I tend to put it at the back of my head for the first few weeks. But then as the 6 days, 5 days, 4 days before comes, I find myself getting extremely nervous.
Yeah.
All the worst case scenarios rush about my head. And I think I'm still learning to let go of a lot of that. And it just varies. I mean, the second one I'd done, I obviously say to myself, I didn't do as well as I wanted to do, but the comparison between me last week and the first one was immense. And just managing to stay calm and controlled in the ring was a huge achievement. And, you know, some people might say, a couple of my friends have said, oh, but shouldn't you be aiming for more at the minute? I'm like, no, this is enough for me at the minute. I'll get there. It's going to take a long while for me, but, you know, I'm enjoying it.
What came up for me then, at the beginning of my kind of white belt journey, what was an achievement was getting onto the mats every time I was training. So whilst I got through the door, you know, sometimes there were moments, you know, during my menstrual cycle, or I just wasn't feeling it, where actually I was, you know, waiting for the kids to finish their classes. But occasionally I just said, right, kids were going, and packed up and never actually got onto the mat. So for me, it was a win stepping onto those mats.
Absolutely.
And then it was a win staying for the whole class, because that sometimes didn't happen either.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, from one session to the next, you just have to be kind to ourselves and go, it's okay. And rather than, you know, our friends are lovely and they're very supportive, but just basing our performance and progress on our own measures, but taking inspiration from what other people, you know, maybe think we should have achieved or think we should kind of progress to. Because one of the quotes from a previous guest said, you know, if you can see it, then you can do it. Likewise, if you can hear your friend saying, well, you know, maybe you could have done better, or maybe you should have, you know, achieved more or won that match or whatever, it may then inspire us to fight a bit harder, to train a bit harder, or to be more mindful about our own practice. So I think there's a balance with both ways. But like you say, it's getting those small wins that are okay for us.
Absolutely. And kind of just when friends sort of say things like that, and in the moment, I know for me, it was kind of like, oh, well, I thought I'd done okay.
Yeah.
But even them saying that, it's kind of, it shows as well that the hopes they have for us, and they can really recognize what we can achieve when perhaps we can't recognize it as easily, which is something I'm completely guilty for. I am not as bad as I used to be, but I would doubt myself, and I still do.
Yeah.
can I do this? I'm not sure. And, you know, definitely like a balance.
You can do anything. Anyone can do anything. You know, it's mindset, it's belief.
Yeah.
I often feel like I can do anything, and I'll have a go. And if, you know, I'll do my best, and that's okay. So I have a go at all sorts of things. So I'm quite pleased. I'm very pleased that Brazilian Jiu Jitsu came along for me. I had a go, and I'm still here. And with this shiny blue belt. Anyway, it's still sat on my lap. I'm going to hug it now for life. When I was a kid, whenever I got a new pair of shoes, I was thinking about this last night, and I kept looking over at my blue belt hung in my room. And I used to wake in the middle of the night, try on my new shoes and go, oh my God, they're so amazing. I didn't wake up. I didn't put on my blue belt in the middle of the night and get back into bed. But the thought was there.
I was hoping you were going to say you did it. I wouldn't blame you.
Oh, okay. I will hang it up and just admire it.
I'd wear it to work and everything.
Actually, I've got a thing tomorrow. I might wear it. Will it go with my outfit? I don't care. I'm going to wear it. So if anyone sees me walking around the streets or in a venue with my blue belt and not my gi, that's okay. Say nothing. Just give me the nod. I want to talk about meeting new women in interclubs or training martial arts and training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. How do you feel when you meet women that you've never met before at an interclub?
It's always, I feel like I'm using that word a lot, but I always get nervous. You know, new people in general, sometimes I get nervous. And it's the whole thing about when I turned up to the interclub, you don't know who you're fighting until pretty much when you get into the ring is the first time you see them. The funny thing is, like, the 2 interclubs I have done, I fought the same girl, and we get along really well. And she actually really inspires me. And, you know, sort of, yeah, it's a mixture of so many people, all from different backgrounds with different experiences, different reasons as to why they started training and why they're going for the goals that they are. And ultimately, I found it to be, in general, one of the most respectful situations. Kind of, you know, you get into the ring and you kind of try and lash it out with each other for 4.5 minutes. But at the end, it's kind of, you know, there's so much gratitude on everyone's part. And, you know, those situations aren't going to be possible if it wasn't for the other women. And kind of even just talking, as we mentioned Katie from her Fight Network earlier, even just by attending a couple of her sparring sessions so far, to meet the women there is such an empowering and inspiring thing. At times I do find it hard at my own gym and elsewhere to spar against men. So to be an environment like that, kind of all women, it allows me to sort of go back and think, okay, I can do this. Kind of sort of reset my focus. I can get so worked up if I've had a difficult sparring session with a male. It knocks me back. It really does knock my confidence. So going to things like the Interclub and her Fight Network sparring sessions kind of brings me back into reality, refocuses my head almost, and, you know, sets me back into, you know, I can do this.
Yes. I wanted to share a story that kind of echoes the feeling nervous about chatting or kind of connecting with women in a, you know, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or whatever. When you see other women you don't know, it is really nerve-wracking. And you go, do I go and speak to them? You know, what are they going to think? Are they looking at me? Are they judging me in a certain way? All of those insecurities are there. But you know what? At the grading yesterday, there were a number of women I didn't know. And when I did get a chance, when I decided that I was going to reach out and chat with them, I wish I'd done it sooner. I so wish I'd reached out and spoke with those women sooner than I did, because we're all just so lovely and kind and supportive and want to grow each other. I just, for me, I'm filled with regret when I don't make those connections as soon as I see and meet new women on the mats. But it is nerve-wracking. But I think we should all just take a step and reach out, and however nervous we are, they're probably equally as nervous to have that conversation. And I think, these open mats and the interclubs, just getting more women on the mats that all have that same vibe. We all want to build each other up, as well as, have a good scrap with each other. When you said 4.5 minutes for a Muay Thai match, I was like, now I'm a blue belt. I've got to do 6 minutes. Ooh, 4.5 minutes sounds much more exciting. Okay, no, I'm sticking with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
We'll do a swap.
All right, okay. You take, without any warning, you have to take me to a Muay Thai thing, and I will take you to a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu thing, or whatever. We'll just have to call someone local to you to just take you. No warning, just go.
I'm down.
Okay, this podcast is getting me into all sorts of trouble. I am upcoming with a year of Jiu-Jitsu Lu podcast, and I have an open mat scheduled for Sunday the 8th of September over at Rising Tide, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Weston-super-Mare. It's from 12 o'clock. I've still got to do all the work around all the other bits to get the invites and the socials out there. But if you're listening to this, please do come along. You are invited. I might have to do a number count just in case we're overrun. But that's going to be an amazing opportunity for everyone that I've ever had on my podcast to be interviewed, that have been interviewed, to come and join and just meet everybody else. Just getting more and more people together that haven't met each other in person. It's a great thing. So I'd love you to come along if you happen to be available and heading out of London on that particular weekend. If not, I will see you next weekend. Okay, so I think being a white belt is a really good thing. Do you think you're going to do gi or no gi? Do you know what gi is?
Yeah.
Do you wear gi?
I did in karate, so I have fond memories of it sometimes.
Okay, they are quite fun. I've had to have mine altered because my arms are... So we were talking about this before we started recording, and I saw a post earlier today about women buying men's gis. Of course we have to buy men's gis because sometimes the women's fit don't quite fit us all, and I've had mine altered. So I've got a men's gi or a unisex gi, but my arms aren't quite long enough to fit the gi, and I'd love them to be longer, but I've had to have the gi altered instead. So it's a case of, getting something that fits properly. But when it does fit properly, it's very easy to maneuver and train or compete in a gi.
Would you say you have like a favourite over the other gi or no gi?
Well, I don't train no gi very often.
Okay.
But when I do, I really love it. But only when I've had a good session in the gi, and then I'm really sweaty, and it sounds really icky to anyone that hasn't trained a martial art. But you just go for it and you don't care. You just then use your techniques with no gi. I don't know. It's not very often, but I think if I trained no gi more, I would love it more. Okay. So maybe that's the thing. And if any of my listeners, train in the gi and think that they, love it more because they continue to train in the gi, would you love no gi as much if you trained that more? Or maybe you do train no gi. I've had lots of guests that are no gi, pretty much only, and they absolutely love it. I think whatever you train, you love.
Yeah.
You put your heart and soul into it, and that's your thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd be interested to know sort of what people prefer.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, it depends who you talk to. Depends what clubs have a preference for. So, yeah, maybe I should do a poll. I'll do a poll on socials and see who's out there and what they like best. I don't know. Media says no gi, I'm sure. But, us... hardcore blue belts, because we've got a blue belt, we wear it on the gi. And do you know what? A lot of blue belts end up wearing a white gi because it shows up more on their white gi. So I'm not sure how often now I'll be wearing my blue gi, because it will just merge in.
Yeah.
Maybe on those days I
You
want to go
answered a
undercover.
question there. I was sort of
Oh, God, what?
Yeah, no, I was sort of like, I think it was a couple of days ago, I was like looking through Instagram at pictures of all these sort of like training profiles, and kind of, I was like, what's the difference between the white gi and the blue gi?
A preference. I had a second-hand gi when I first started training, and I was like, it goes in the wash after every session. You shove your belt in the washing machine, everything gets washed together, or whatever. It depends how particular you are. Yeah, it was just, that was what I could afford. That was what I had at the time. And then I kind of, fancied getting a white gi, so I did, but it was too big, and then got it altered. I think it's just whatever you can get your hands on. I know a lot.
Oh, so there's no difference?
No, all the same, all much of a muchness.
Okay.
But, some of the white gis discolour quite quickly. Again, I'm quite particular about washing white gis. And try and keep them white. I don't stick them in with, grubby this or grubby that, or the kids' football kits. If you can keep them looking nice, then the white gi's the way to go. I think it's, I feel a bit more shiny. It's not stuff I'd wear on the streets normally, or, out and about. Yeah. However, I have bought some nice white jeans recently that also had to be altered because they were too long for me. So my Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is now influencing my everyday clothing.
There you go. Perfect with a belt.
Oh, I can do that tomorrow. I'm going to wear my pair of jeans. Okay, this is turning into a fashion thing now. Laura, you've been amazing. I can't wait until you start Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Will you come back and chat with me when you have got through the doors, stepped onto the mats, and done your first class? Because I think you'll love it.
Absolutely. Sort of, I'll probably even go away now looking up clubs near me, write down their addresses, and hopefully next couple of weeks I'll make that jump.
Get your free trials in. Go and see what they're all like.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a real vibe. You'll know, not that I've bought that many houses, I haven't, but when you see a place, or, you're looking at your new rental, you just know.
Get an instinct, yeah.
Go with it. It's
absolutely
amazing.
No.
And if anyone,
I'll let you know how it goes.
And if anyone listening hasn't started training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu like lovely Laura, go and search out your local school. Go and find a free class, or a trial session. Go and have a go. See if you like the vibe, and reach out to those women. And women, if you're on the training mats and see new ladies coming through the door, make them feel welcome. I know we all do, but sometimes there's nerves, but it just makes everyone feel so much lovelier. Guys, equally, reach out when new people come in, and if any of guys out there that are listening that haven't also started training, or haven't been on the mats for a while, do that too. It's all about inclusivity. Get everyone training more jiu-jitsu and getting your blue belts, especially if you're a white belt.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Laura.
No, thank you for having me.
Speak to you very soon.
Okay, bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as this episode ends, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Thanks again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the Jiu Jitsu Loop podcast.